First Alert Winter Extremes is brought to you by National Grid.
New England's wild winter weather, from mild temperatures to frigid cold, snow, and ice.
Better to expect the unexpected, I'd say.
Why is it happening, and what's to come? Preparing for a winter storm. What do you do if you lose power?
That type of cold can be deadly.
Or get stranded on the road? We have the information to keep you safe. Predicting avalanches and floods. Hiking with Plymouth State University meteorology students on Mount Washington as they build sensors to collect important data. How does the extreme weather affect wildlife?
They become dehydrated.
A look inside sea turtle rehabilitation in Quincy. Plus, winter thrill seekers. The excitement.
You're so fixated on what you're doing in the moment.
The danger. We go ice climbing in New Hampshire for an adrenaline adventure. This is First Alert Winter Extremes.
From record-breaking cold to record-breaking warm, this winter has been all over the charts. Hi, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Noyes. Thanks for joining us for First Alert Winter Extremes. We're here at Neshoba Valley Ski Area in Westford, Massachusetts, where not only have the ups and downs of temperatures posed a challenge, but it's been a slow start to the snow season. Of course, remember, we jumped into the 60s in December, near 60 in January, and just a few weeks ago, we had a wind chill of 35 below zero. What is up with winter? What's been going on with the weather pattern to give us these extremes? And where's the snow been in the first part of winter? Where do we go from here? Let's take a deep dive.
It's hard to be a kid and not love New England winters. Sledding, skiing, tubing, snowball fights, and snow days. This year, though, the key ingredient to the recipe for winter fun, snow, has been in short supply. For grown-ups, we've replaced typical winter scenes like this with extremes of dry record cold, record warmth, messy rain and ice, and very little snow.
It's like we're cold, but we're still surviving.
Better to expect the unexpected, I'd say.
Sometimes it's, 60 degrees and beautiful and sunny, and sometimes it's incredibly windy and, freezing.
So what's up with nature? Why are we leaving kids and kids at heart fixated on the exclusive 10-day forecast for any sign of the white stuff? UMass Lowell meteorologist David Coe studies the jet stream, the fast river of air high in the sky that steers our storms and separates cold and warm air. He says the now famous polar vortex plays a role.
This is what everyone's been talking about, the whole polar vortex. And we've been waiting for it to split. And it finally did the past couple weeks. And now, as you know, Minnesota is getting freezing this week. And that's going to bring us actually our cold and our best shot at the winter.
A new buzzword in viral media, the polar vortex has been familiar in science since the mid-1800s. A swirling mass of cold air, usually near the North Pole, occasionally sends cold shots southward. This year, the polar vortex has been disorganized, splitting into pieces, resulting in broken and disjointed cold. What about another buzzword often referenced when it comes to snow? The Pacific Ocean temperature and wind pattern El Nino.
It's been fairly neutral actually all this winter and doesn't look like it's going to form until at least March. So it hasn't really played a big effect.
So is it only the polar vortex that matters this winter? Coe says there are a couple more important players.
We usually want warmer surface temperatures in the Arctic. Usually it gets up to about 25 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is not what we're seeing this year. They're actually staying well below average to about 10 to 15 degrees. The bigger effect is actually the Madden-Julian oscillation, which we call the MJO, which is kind of the brother to the El Nino-La Nina. And it's influenced by tropical precipitation. However, it hasn't been in the phase we need it, but it's finally going back into that colder phase for next month.
NBC 10 and NECN's First Alert weather team looks at the abundance of that tropical moisture available, and we expect plenty of rain and snow to crank up across the country in the second half of winter. Here at home, though, our best chance of some decent snow is probably the middle and end of February, when that moisture meets up with available cold air. Coe agrees.
And through middle of February to middle of March, that's when we'll have our best shot at good cold winter and cold winter storms.
Still, even with a good storm or two in the second half of February, there's only so much winter that can unfold with a closing window as March brings easing cold and a strengthening sun angle.
This year, we may see one or two of those in the coming months, but I don't think we're going to see a storm after storm like we did the past couple of years. Last year, we didn't really have a spring, and we didn't really have a fall this past year. So the seasons are changing. And unfortunately, winter is getting shorter and to the point where you're going to see it either in the beginning of when we would expect it or near the end when we expect spring.
Now, every winter, when we do get the big storms that come calling, we know they can bring hazardous conditions and also widespread power outages. When combined with extreme cold, that can really be a dangerous combination. Our meteorologist Pamela Gardner gives us a look at how our state officials are working to keep us safe.
Blizzards, nor'easters, ice storms. We New Englanders have seen it all. But when a major storm hits, are we prepared? Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, also known as MEMA, coordinates federal, state, and local resources to prepare for and respond to severe weather, emergencies, and other disasters.
Here at MEMA, I'm walking down a ramp into a bunker built in 1963 to withstand a nuclear attack.
Inside MEMA's 24/7 Emergency Communications Center, staff will track and monitor significant weather events and emergencies around the state.
We provide dispatch services for a number of agencies. We're connected with all 351 cities and towns.
Snow's projected to come down between 1 and 3 inches per hour.
When there's a major storm, MEMA activates the State Emergency Operations Center, sharing vital information and supporting impacted communities with resources to respond to and rescue those in need.
Between 125 and 150 emergency rescues today.
MEMA Director Kurt Schwartz says the season's snowstorms causing extreme cold, blustering winds, and freezing rain can be hazardous and can lead to potentially dangerous consequences.
The extreme winter weather can lead to power outages and people being cut off and isolated in their homes. So if people are not prepared, they may be in homes that are very cold and then add heavy snow and ice so you can't get away from your home and get to shelter. That can be a deadly combination.
Schwartz says that one of the most common problems when people are trapped in their home is not having enough food, water, medicine, and supplies. So preparing for an emergency before the storm is critical.
Have a plan. Think ahead. If I lose power, if it becomes too cold in my home, if I'm going to be shut off from the outside world, how do I prepare for that?
Many of us know to have the essentials like an all-weather radio, flashlights, batteries, sleeping bags, warm blankets, and layers of extra clothes. But during a storm, pipes will often freeze, so make sure to have at least a 3-day supply of water, about a gallon a day for each family member, including pets.
You know, you can store up drinking water from your tap as the storm comes in. Fill up those empty soda bottles or jugs around the house.
Stock up on non-perishable foods that don't need to be heated. Try to keep your refrigerator and freezer closed as much as possible. Have an ample supply of prescriptions and over-the-counter medicine. And if you are using a generator or alternative heating supply, beware of carbon monoxide poisoning.
Never bring a generator or a gas-powered device into the home, so don't put your generator in the garage.
And have working carbon monoxide and smoke detectors with fully charged batteries. Driving in snow, ice, and freezing rain is another potentially life-threatening hazard. Massachusetts State Police Sergeant Mike Miskill says spinouts are common. He says the first line of defense is to call 911, but if your cell phone isn't working,
anything that they can do to highlight their vehicle as being in need of assistance, if that's hazard lights, raising their hood, attaching some sort of clothing material or something extraneous to the car that calls attention to that vehicle, that is not just simply stopped at the side of the road.
You know, with the combination of fluctuating temperatures and then you get the heavy rain and the heavy snow of all different types, avalanche forecasting and flood forecasting becomes really important. There's a group of Plymouth State University graduate students and faculty that are hiking Mount Washington, putting out sensors to record data for exactly that. Our meteorologist Chris Gloniger hiked along.
When Mount Washington is your classroom, you need to be prepared for some of the most extreme weather in the world.
But today we're doing all right. Temperatures are in the single digits. Winds are gusting just above the treetops, probably to 30 or so.
We joined Dr. Eric Kelsey and his team of grad students and faculty from Plymouth State University on a research expedition. It's physically challenging getting up here, and especially if you take a misstep, you find yourself with some pretty deep snow, nearly knee-deep. I thank my photojournalist Steve Shannon, who made the climb with heavy gear.
We need to better monitor how much water is actually locked up in the snow here in the mountains so we can make better flooding forecasts.
Their research will also help to keep backcountry snow enthusiasts safe.
Avalanches are a huge risk here, especially in Tuckerman Ravine, where on some of the nice, warm, sunny spring days, you'll get thousands of people in the ravine.
This project is the brainchild of Dr. Kelsey, but it was the job of his students like Liz Drakowski to make it come to fruition.
We know how snow falls and how it comes out of the clouds, but we don't really know how it reacts once it's on the ground.
Commercial scientific snow probes cost thousands of dollars, but these students invented and built a much cheaper probe, reducing its cost to hundreds. Hydrologist Dan Evans says the cost savings allow them to have more probes, so they're able to increase their sample size.
We want to be able to do hundreds of sites up a stream to be able to really look at how the hydrology is changing.
The snowpack varies greatly over short distances, especially here in the mountains. You know, you go a couple hundred feet that way and the snow might be a foot less deep or more deep, and it has more or less water in it.
This is the team's highest altitude sensor at about 4,000 feet. To show you how much snow has accumulated so far this season, I'll dive down. Keep in mind, there's another 1.5 feet of snow under my feet. Each site must be dug out to reach the data box.
With all those wires in that little box, trying to get your fingers, trying to get them in. Luckily I have smaller fingers, so I can actually get some of the stuff working.
While on site, the crew also performed snow core measurements.
How much water is in the snow? If we melt it down, how deep will that water be?
Sensors can measure the temperatures of the snow and the ground below the snow. That data is logged on an SD card. Back on campus, the data is processed.
So on the SD card, we get this jumbo mess. It's all in voltages and resistance, and we have to convert it all.
Number crunching is even more critical with climate change, from midwinter thaws causing serious flooding to increased extreme snowfalls causing avalanches. These bright minds are helping solve some of our greatest forecast challenges.
When we come back, how this winter's extremes are affecting thrill seekers and wildlife. All of that and more next. We're at Neshoba Valley, a family-run ski, snowboard, and snow tubing operation for 55 years. You know, families have been coming to learn to ski here for generations. Neshoba Valley has seen certainly plenty of ups and downs, warmer winters like the one we have now, or cold shots like the ones we've been seeing. Not everything can fare with warm and cold changes so well. Wildlife, especially sea turtles, running into trouble. On Cape Cod, 180 sea turtles washed up ashore. What's happening? How do we prevent it? Meteorologist Michael Page investigates at the South Shore.
I'm gonna give them fluids again.
It's another busy morning inside this exam room.
If a turtle is due for exam on one day, we will also do their blood work, the radiographs, the injections, and then put them back in the water.
Adam Kennedy is one of several New England aquarium biologists caring for 6 sea turtles in Quincy.
Don't worry about those spots.
The turtles come here, to the Sea Turtle Hospital, after washing up on Cape Cod beaches late in the fall and early in the winter.
It is a unique event that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
The mostly young, endangered turtles are drawn to New England waters each summer, feeding on crabs. By fall, with ocean temperatures dropping dramatically, they get stunned and pushed ashore by gusty winds.
And that during that time, they're becoming emaciated because they're using up fat to stay alive. They're becoming dehydrated.
Most of the strandings happen along Cape Cod Bay, from Dennis to Brewster to Wellfleet. The arm of the Cape essentially traps the turtles, preventing an escape once they realize they're in trouble.
Those first turtles start coming up in usually the first week in November. If it's a really warm year, maybe we won't see a lot of them until the second week in November.
This was a particularly busy season with a sudden cold snap around Thanksgiving. Hundreds of turtles washed ashore, some frozen to death. The survivors sent here to warm up before they're released back into the ocean.
The turtles typically spend anywhere from a few weeks up to several months.
When this Quincy facility was designed, it was thought that at any point in the tanks there'd be about 80 turtles. This year, for example, 400 plus turtles came to Quincy, all needing medical attention. And this is part of a somewhat disturbing trend in New England waters.
The trend line continues to go up. We know that we have a new normal now.
Back in the 1990s, Lacasse said about 50 turtles were treated each season.
In the 2010 and 2011 summers, we had just off-the-chart warming of ocean waters around New England, and that has changed everything.
The warmer summer waters lured in more turtles, which then meant a huge spike in strandings when temperatures plunged. By 2014, even more turtles.
We had 700 sea turtles that came in a 6-week period.
Facing that huge influx, the hospital now has to triage.
We keep the kind of the worst of the worst, because those animals can't travel.
But those turtles that are stronger are sent south to other facilities along the Gulf and East Coast.
We've developed a network of private pilots called Turtles Fly 2, and they will literally take 6 to a dozen turtles that will go to different centers.
This works well for the smaller turtles, but big loggerhead turtles like Munchkin, not so much. At 300 pounds, she's the hospital's biggest patient ever. She lost part of a flipper, likely after being entangled by some kind of fishing line.
Then the water temperature got low enough that she actually washed up with the others.
Her huge tank, just one addition as the hospital adapts to its new reality.
One group that's really been enjoying these winter extremes, thrill seekers. These adrenaline junkies have started all sorts of new trends, from winter surfing to ice boating to fat biking to ice climbing. Our meteorologist Pete Bouchard takes a closer look at this dangerous but many say rewarding sport.
Ice climbing in New England, the thrill, the beauty, the danger. Each year, thousands of enthusiasts from all over the country come to North Conway, New Hampshire to experience some of the best ice climbing in the nation.
This is Cathedral Edge, a 500-foot rock cliff with a different variety of routes on the way up. It has different ice flows for different skill levels. Temperatures have been fluctuating all season long, but this year it's been ideal for ice climbing.
It's been a great year so far. You've had a good combination of warm and cold with some precip thrown in, which is kind of the key to keeping the groundwater actively flowing.
Keith Moon is general manager and instructor for Eastern Mountain Sports Climbing School. He's been ice climbing for over 15 years. He says the weather this season has come with some challenges.
Really the hardest conditions to deal with are the extremes, either extreme warmth or extreme cold. Both kind of present totally different challenges. When it's too warm, obviously the ice is actively melting and wanting to kind of degrade in that form. And when it's too cold, the ice almost dries out and becomes brittle and more easily broken.
Keith says researching the conditions of the ice before you climb is important to staying safe, as well as being conscious of falling ice. And he says having the right equipment is vital, which has improved as the sport has gained popularity.
Now the equipment, as the technology has increased, has made everything lighter as well, which makes it easier to climb. If you're not being weighed down quite as much and you're kind of more fluid with having that lightweight equipment, that goes a long way.
All right, Keith, we're going to go ice climbing. This is the pack that we need and the equipment.
Sure, so there's quite a lot of equipment involved in ice climbing. We need to physically use tools to make our way up the ice. If you imagine trying to grab a slippery icicle, it's not going to work well. So we need to use these tools. So the first thing we have here are these specific ice tools. They have kind of a nice handle on it and a super sharp pick. So those go on our hands, and then on our feet we have crampons. These need special boots to go onto, but they're steel spikes that allow us to kick our feet into the ice to create stable platforms.
That's some good grip there.
So probably one of the most important pieces of our kit is going to be our helmet. That's one of our main kind of risk management tools, is to protect our head from falling ice. So you don't go ice climb without a helmet.
Added into the pack is a 200-foot rope, a harness, and for protection, sharp screws that manually get spun into the ice.
Cool, this is all the gear that we're going to bring out there.
All right, Keith, let's get going.
Let's do it. Ice climbing super physical, but it's also very cerebral. While you're actually climbing, it's almost like this idea of kind of therapy or meditation where you're so fixated on what you're doing in the moment and being very in tune with your surroundings that everything else kind of falls away. It's very surreal, almost meditative. It's pretty awesome.
With each climb comes balance, concentration, precision, and strength.
You're hyper-focused during the activity. You want to be very precise with your movement. That's one of our primary risk management tools, is really good movement. So while I'm doing it, it's a complete concentration on the activity. Is the ice changing? Is it becoming more brittle, thinner, thicker? And then my movement itself.
Keith says despite the risks, ice climbing can be for all ages. In fact, he's taught young teens to people in their 70s.
So if somebody was looking to get out and try ice climbing, really one of your only and best options is to head out with a qualified guide.
All the tools and technology to keep you ahead of the storm. Coming up next, a behind-the-scenes look at how our First Alert weather team delivers the most accurate forecast. Welcome back to First Alert Winter Extremes. Technology, a huge part of what goes on here at Neshoba Valley Ski Area. 120 guns that are blowing snow with 2,400 gallons per minute of water when they're running at peak. That's how you get snow in what's been a slow start to the snow season. We have our own technology in our First Alert weather team. Meteorologist Denise Isaac gives us an inside look.
Our First Alert weather team here at NBC 10 Boston, NECN, and Telemundo Boston is always working to keep you informed. First Alert is your first heads up the weather could impact your life. From snowstorms to icy roads, damaging wind, or dangerous cold. We also have exclusive cutting-edge tools to help keep you safe. Storm Ranger is our mobile Doppler weather radar truck. We're the only ones with the ability to send a radar right to the storm for faster, more accurate updates, so we can tell you about the latest changes in a storm, getting information no one else can.
Things going downhill pretty quickly. When we hopped on at the Charlton rest stop, we're going to give you a live look outside the windshield.
You can also count on Weather Warrior to be in action where we're tracking snow on ice. The Weather Center on Wheels gives us a live look at road conditions for real-time travel information and live reports from your neighborhood, including sharing the weather with students in our schools. Speaking of neighborhood weather, our First Alert Weather Underground network of weather sensors is another exclusive tool for NBC 10 Boston. In our broadcast, you'll see and hear us presenting our exclusive NBC 10 Boston computer model. This forecast system was developed by our own First Alert meteorologists in-house, and because we built it with greater detail and accuracy, we're the only ones who have it. Of course, all of this weather information comes to you as our exclusive First Alert 10-day forecast. You won't find it anywhere else on TV in New England. And so many of you plan your work days and your valuable time off around our advanced predictions. It's all about keeping you and your family prepared with a forecast you can rely on every day. First Alert Weather.
One thing's for sure, this New England winter, like all of them, has not failed to keep us on our toes. The slow start to the snow season, the big rains, the warm, the cold, it's all been thrown at us. Every step of the way, you can count on our team to keep you up to date with the most accurate forecast, First Alert Weather. On behalf of our team, we hope you enjoyed the special. Have a great winter. Stay safe and have fun.
First Alert Winter Extremes is brought to you by National Grid.